welcome to the Alphabetical Fugazi, the only podcast that devotes an episode each to discussing every song in the band's catalog, from Fuga A to Fuga Z. I'm your host, Ian James Wright. Joining me today to discuss Birthday Pony from the 1995 album Red Medicine is a veteran of Washington, D.C. music, best known for his bands Smar Went Crazy and Beauty Pill, and as a producer and engineer who, among various other projects, mastered Fugazi's last album. Welcome to the show, Chad Clark.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Actually mastered all of the Fugazi records, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes. When I did the argument, it was towards the end of John Loder's life. John Loder was the previous mastering engineer. And I think that the band had never really gotten involved in the mastering process before. And they were pretty excited about the results and excited about the process, so they decided to remaster the entire catalog.
Wow.
So I've mastered all of the Fugazi records. It's actually I think it's one of the things in my life that one of the things that I will take to the grave is like, I'm the dude that mastered Fugazi.
That is awesome. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I want to rewind in a second and go back, talk about the beginning. But let me just ask you about that, because as an amateur musician, mastering is a very mysterious process to me. I don't think I'm alone in that among other musicians. Like, what exactly is mastering? So keep that in mind as I ask you, like, A, what was it like to master Fugazi, and B, did it require a different approach from working on other bands in the same way? Was there something unique about working on their records?
I mean, their records are extremely deep and extremely important to me, and very refined works. And I took that work very, very seriously. I was pretty devout lover of that catalog, and I treated it with as much dignity and purpose as I could. Mastering is essentially taking the final mix of the band and rendering it to the delivery medium. In this case, vinyl CDs and cassettes. And in doing that, you can adjust, in the simplest terms, bass and treble, the how bright or how dark the record is, how heavy it is, how you can adjust the sort of the tone and also the dynamics of the record. And Fugazi's dynamics were critical to what they were communicating. But they were disappointed that their previous masterings hadn't sounded as full-bodied as they had hoped. I saw my job as the person who was trying to render the full three-dimensional truth of those records to the listener. And I'm pretty happy with the work.
About what time did you do this? Work on all their back catalog? We started with the argument, and then in the next 5 or 6 years, 7 years maybe, after following the argument, we just kept going back and remastering the previous records. So at this point, if I go back and buy Fugazi CDs or MP3s on Discord, I'm going to hear the Chad Clark remasters?
Yes, that's what you're hearing. If you hear it on streaming, if you hear it anywhere, pretty much you're hearing my version for sure.
Okay, I think I might have to go back and get new copies, because I'm very interested now. Do you would you say there's one record in particular that there's a most noticeable difference from the previous master?
Yes, I would say it is. For me, I would say the most obvious thing is Steady Diet of Nothing. Mm-hmm. Because the original is so stark and so dynamic in such a specific way, such a almost like, I don't know, Japanese sort of. They were into this really austere minimalism in that period, and you can hear it in the sort of the dry. It's not as much of a widescreen record as they later came to make. But they were definitely thinking sort of cinematically. And I feel like you can really hear there's more warmth and there's more intimacy in the new version than I think there was in the old. Of course, I'm biased,
Right.
but yeah, I'm really. It was really important to me. Very much like was the custodian of extremely important and really vital, Library of Congress type of stuff. Like
Right.
I really think that I hold Fugazi up with the Beatles and Coltrane and Bach. I mean, it's incredible music, and I really took it very seriously.
I'm right there with you. Well, that's amazing. I'm definitely I love all of Fugazi's catalog, but I'll admit Steady Diet is probably my least loved album. So I'm definitely gonna go back and check that out. Have a re-listen because I'm not sure if I've heard your version. So thanks for tipping me off to that.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
So yeah, let's back up a second. I'll just ask you a very open-ended question. Can you tell me just a summary of your life in music and how that intertwined with your relationship with Fugazi as both a fan and a collaborator?
Yeah, my band was on Ian's label, which is Discord, as you know. My old band, Smart Went Crazy, and I think that in DC, it became known that I was really into sound. That sound is my superpower or whatever. Like I feel like that people began to understand that I was very, very focused on it, and and uh, and Ian really came to appreciate it. I had a studio uh, in the small room outside of Inner Ear. It was the sort of like the smaller studio adjacent to Inner Ear, and I was doing mastering.
Silver
and
Sonia.
Silver Sonia, yes. And I think Ian knew that I was very serious about it, and I took the work very seriously, and I think that appealed to him. And he wanted to give it a try. I think we did one Fugazi song, for the 20th anniversary Discord compilation. I think that's how it started, and I think the band were blown away by the difference between the two masters, and I think that's what got them excited about working with me.
Do you remember when you first were introduced to Fugazi?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like I've known them all my life. Oh, you know what? I saw Fugazi at DC Space, which is a tiny DC club that doesn't exist anymore, hasn't existed for a very long time. And I saw them. I was not that interested in Minor Threat. I knew the way the band was sold to me was like, oh, this is X Minor Threat. I didn't really care that much about Minor Threat at the time. I went to see them because I was curious. People were excited about the band, and they played this really late night show. And the place was totally packed. It was a tiny club, but it was absolutely packed. And the experience was, I mean, it's a cliche, but life-changing. They played. I know they opened with Margin Walker that night.
Yeah. Do you have any idea what year this would be? We might be able to.
I don't know. I'm sure you can probably find it in the Fugazi recordings archive. No, I have never really thought about this. I haven't really thought about this show for a long time. But I remember Ian said something about the Metro. I remember there's some comment about the. Ian said something about the Metro or the Metro closing, or I can't remember what it was. But that's stuck in my brain. And Margin Walker, opens with such a revolutionary guitar thing with the harmonics that open that song. I mean, there's other guitar riffs that use harmonics, but the way Margin Walker opens is really exciting and innovative. And then the band just kicks in, and it was just like, what the fuck is going on? So yeah, I remember, I do remember being introduced to them that way. And then I just later, as I became even more of a fan, I think their records generally came out in the summer. That's my recollection. I think their albums generally came out in the summertime. I think I remember In on the Kill Taker coming out in the summertime.
Yes.
And I would just take the records home and I would just pour over the lyric sheets and the whole world, the graphic world of their records. I took their records very seriously. And they were very inspiring to me. I mean, they're inspiring. The nature of Fugazi is that they're inspiring to almost anyone who gets it at all. So I'm not any different than that. But I do spend a lot of time thinking about the songs and thinking about what is being said. I take music very seriously, and I engage with it at a pretty intense level, I guess.
Definitely.
So Fugazi is rewarding, I feel like, for any kind of music listener. If you're just looking for something to make an exciting noise in your living room, you can put on a Fugazi record and it's going to be an exciting noise. If you're looking for something that is a really provocative lyrical experience, they'll meet you there too. If you're looking for, there's so many levels of that you can receive their music, and it's something that I am very, very proud of them being a Washington D.C. phenomenon.
Absolutely, and I think you're absolutely right that how inspiring they are to anybody who listens. The premise of this whole podcast is there are going to be lots of people out there who are interested in just talking about the bands and their songs and getting deep on them. And I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, you picked a good band too. If you're going to analyze a band's song by song catalog, this is a good band to do for sure.
And I would say, I was going to ask you if there were any specific inspirations that you took from them when it came to making your music, but something you just said is paying lots of attention to the sonic qualities and to the lyrics. I mean, that seems like something right there that in your career you've paid a lot of attention to both of those things and not slacked off in either regard.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there was a standard of excellence that they threw out. I also really did not want to ever make music. I wanted to find my own voice as a writer. I was not interested in sounding like them. I think there are some very conspicuous moments in my own music where you can tell that I'm influenced by Fugazi. I think there's some of those are slightly embarrassing, to be honest with you. But I really wanted to give. Here's the thing. I want to give the listener content. I really fucking care about that. It's really important to me to that the songs are substantive, and I feel like that's. I also like Mos Def, and I like hip hop, and I like a lot of other things aside from Fugazi that have pushed me in that direction. But I'm really disdainful of vapid music. But I feel like you couldn't do this series on a lot of bands because there's not a lot to discuss in a lot of bands' catalogs. There's just no there. And Fugazi, there's always a there. And that means so much to me. And I want to do the same thing in my own way. Every song that I release, I can explain. I mean, there's sometimes, Beauty Pill in particular gets into some pretty, esoteric sonic mischief, I guess. And I'm never doing anything everything I do has a reason behind it. And I can sort of defend, even if I'm moving with just instinct, I can defend that there's substance behind every gesture. And substance behind every gesture is, to me, what Fugazi stood for. I mean, even the fact that their shows were all white lights. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, that never came to mind before, but yeah, I can't remember them ever having any kind of gels or any sort of interesting lighting whatsoever, with the notable exception of actual lightning at Fort Reno.
Yeah, yeah, but they were against rock and roll color lighting. They were like a lot of people are against smoke machines or whatever, but Fugazi were against colored lights.
Yeah.
That which is such an amazing statement. Like, we want only the glare of white lights on in almost a surgical way. Like, you're going to watch some fucking surgery.
Yeah. Well, they don't need colored lights is the thing, That's the thing about them in general. They don't need anything extraneous because the music says it all. They don't need stagecraft. They don't need merchandise. Their music was just so immense,
exciting,
and yes, and vital that
yeah,
it would almost take away from it to dress it up.
I fully agree, and I think they knew that. There's a confidence in that. There's a we don't fucking need colored lights. The colored lights are in your eyes. It's like it's not. There's no need for any sort of extra theatricality. I fully agree that there's a statement of confidence there, but there's also a statement of, we're not going to hide. We're not interested in hiding. And they want everyone to feel that in the lights. Even people that didn't notice, hey, this band is playing with all white lights, and I haven't seen a band do that. Even people that didn't notice.
Right.
And felt it, People feel that kind of communication, even if they don't, take conscious observation of it. In terms of my own work, the thing that I took away is, I don't want to fuck around. I don't want to. Life is short, and I want to express my inner thoughts and my feelings in a way that is, if not always clear, at least present. And yeah, that's I think the principal influence of Fugazi on my own work.
Yeah, I think that definitely comes through. And for any listeners who aren't in the DC area, I'll just say I think in the DC area, you're very well respected. People want to work with you. They really connect with that sort of principled approach to music that you come with. So by the way, I didn't mention this to you before, but you actually worked on an album that I played on, which is Everyone Wore White by Carol Bowie. You remember that one?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I played bass with Carol for many years, and I played bass on a number of songs on that album. So that was, I don't think we ever were in the studio together, but that came out really great thanks to you.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, that was really happy about that.
Before we break in to talking about Birthday Pony, by the way, would you like to talk about the sort of new developments in Beauty Pill?
Yeah. I got sick in about 10 years ago. I got sick. I got a virus that went into my heart and nearly killed me. And I was saved by an emergency open heart surgery. Basically, if your heart receives a bacteria or virus, it's very vulnerable to, it's often swiftly fatal. If you get an infection in your lung, if you get an infection in your liver, if you get an infection in your kidney, these are things that your body has sort of defense systems for. But the heart, ironically, as essential as it is for life, does not have any defenses against pathogens. So I knew I felt like I was certain I was going to die. But I didn't die. After that, I had this sort of clarity about kind of actually after a near-death experience. It's a cliche, but you do have some clarity over what you want to do with your life. We made a record. Beauty Pill made a record. We were invited. I have to say, I do enjoy a certain amount of. I feel like DC is very kind to me. Just sort of what you just said. Like, I feel that DC, the DC music world and the DC art world are very kind to me and encouraging. A museum called Artisphere commissioned us to record our record as a public exhibit in the museum for 2 weeks, meaning that we recorded every day from morning to night in a room where there was a window looking into the room, and people could watch us and listen to us as we worked. It was not so we made a record that was not exactly a live record in the sense that there's, we're not playing to an audience and it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4 concert kind of thing. But we did this record in a sort of unusual way, and I was really happy with the outcome. And for economic reasons, baseline economic reasons, I felt like there was no way we could make this record work financially on Discord. So we left Discord amicably. It was a difficult thing to do. And we went to a label run by this guy, Alan Fermello, in upstate New York. And we put out the record. It's called Beauty Pill Describes Things as They Are. It came out in 2015. And I was really happy. The responses to the record have been really, really strong. But the experience of releasing the record was pretty miserable. By contrast to working with Ian, who is completely interested in basically in doing the right thing. A lot of what Ian is famous for, Ian should be famous for. Alan was a total opposite of that, and so we had an unhappy experience. So we're not on that label anymore, and so we have a new record, which is called Please Advise, and it's coming out on Northern Spy, which is a label out of New York that has historically put a lot of out New York music, jazz, and that kind of stuff. So that's what's happening with Beauty Pill. But anyway,
yeah, you shared with me a new single that's coming out, and you have a new addition to the band in Erin Nelson.
Yes, Erin is actually the wife of Ryan Nelson, who was the drummer for Beauty Pill, the previous drummer for Beauty Pill. So her husband is an ex-member of Beauty Pill. It's a very weird situation, but it's really great.
The single "Pardon Our Dust," so interesting. It's like the lyrics are a sort of pop culture political collage of almost like a found...
That's exactly right.
Yes, I noticed there's some things you couldn't quite place. I noticed there was a quote from Miss South Carolina in there.
Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah, it's a song that's sort of about, in the most basic terms, it's about oblivion. I don't know if you know people that are doing this, but I'll give you an example. Like my brother, at some point last year, my brother told me he had stopped reading the news.
Yeah.
My brother is a very, very intelligent dude, very, intellectually engaged person. And he told me he had stopped reading the news, and because he felt like it was an oppressive, constant onslaught of stupidity from the Trump administration. And he felt, he's like, I don't feel like there's anything I can do to stop this, the daily kind of indignities of being an American in 2018 or whatever. And so I'm just shutting it out. And basically he would rely on his friends to text him links to important events instead of actually reading the news, because he just felt like it was constantly he's like, basically it's just making me feel older. And I think that's interesting. I think a lot of people have been increasingly shutting out the world because it's too fucking stupid, and trying to find some way of existing somehow apart from it. But I think there's a problem with that. I think it's not a healthy thing to do, to withdraw. So the song is about the first line of the song is a Prince quote, and it's Prince's sort of form of oblivion. And then we go to the Miss South Carolina quote, which is a darker form of oblivion, which is ignorance. And so the song sort of explores the concept of oblivion. I guess that's the more succinct way I could say it.
Yeah, I guess the bastards are successfully grinding us down at this point.
Yeah, it sucks, and we need Fugazi. We need Fugazi.
We do.
Everybody can feel it, right? We need Fugazi. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason I started this podcast. Is I felt that need, and I was like, well, if I can't have them, I need to talk about them with people. So here we are. Birthday Pony. Let's talk about it. I want to say right off the bat, it's that title, Birthday Pony, is almost certainly the most whimsical image to be found in Fugazi lyrics up to this point in their career. Like, I love that. Probably, like, if you looked at a list of all the Fugazi song titles, it'd be Birthday Pony and Pink Frosty would be two notable outliers. Like, well, what are these two?
And they're both really dark songs. Isn't that interesting? Like, they're both really dark.
That's true. That's true.
They're not silly songs at all. Yeah, I guess here's my feeling about Birthday Pony, and I should just be very, very clear. I mean, I have some insight into Fugazi because I do know them, but I'm gonna really just speak from my own vantage as a subjective listener. So anything that I say is I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, maybe that's obvious, but I want to be really clear about it. From my vantage, Birthday Pony it's interesting to me what is happening on a lot of Ian's mid-90s lyrics. I feel like he really becomes more like the person that I often see when I go to his house and have tea. He's a really philosophical dude. And I feel like you can hear that on Bed for the Scraping and Birthday Pony. And, you can certainly hear it on Long Distance Runner, where he's talking about a view of his own life and sort of confronting existential questions. I feel like Birthday Pony, you're right, it does sound deliberately ridiculous. But he's basically saying, I have a gift of looks like he's saying I have a gift of a day off. This is a birthday pony. This is a strange kind of rest because I feel like a guest when I'm right here at home. I'm not right here at home. And the way that he sings I'm not right here at home the second time, the band slows down and they do this very soothing chord change. And he makes you feel all the weight of those words. I'm not right here at home. And I think it's about, I feel like it's about a person being at a distance from yourself, feeling some kind of spiritual dislocation. And that's really internal. That's a sort of a soul thing. And I feel like Ian is not as known for that aspect of his writing. There's a lot of his writing that's very these sort of soulful haikus that are about life, and they're not necessarily making. I mean, he's best known for, most people's image of him is the dude that is pointing out at the audience and is glaring at someone or glaring at us all, and making a proclamation or saying something damning. But the truth is, a lot of his lyrics are self-analytical. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this song, and I feel like this song is a little bit related to Bed for the Scraping, in that I feel like he's trying to just do what we all do, which is like trying to feel centered within himself and feel some sense of reason to exist. And I think the line, "When I'm right here at home, I'm not right here at home," is great, because when he says, "When I'm right here at home," the first time it's just like, well, I am right at home. And then right here at home means, the second time means
comfortable or
comfortable. Exactly.
yeah.
I'm not comfortable here at home. And I think, and then the line that follows is, "I opened up these accounts, all these separate accounts," which is hilarious to me, because that's probably actually directly autobiographical. Like that's not, I don't think that's made up. I feel like that's probably him actually talking about his actual life. In the mid 90s, Fugazi were doing really well,
Right.
financially. And they were doing so well that there was like this massive bidding war to try to lure them into the world of major labels. And they were, I mean, I imagine, very fiscally sound at that point. I mean, they've probably always been fiscally sound, but I like that he uses, "I open up these accounts, all these separate accounts," and then this is one of my favorite lines. This is one of my favorite Ian MacKaye lines, "Because I can't comprehend the single ride to the end," which is just fucking genius.
What's your take on what that means?
I just think it's like the feeling that everyone has, where you feel like your attention is totally fractured, and you don't even know who you are, and you're multiple people, and they're multiple. You're feeling not, or you're feeling not centered, I guess, and it's sort of ADD, or attention. Like it's. I think he's talking about kind of a spiritual unity. I know that sounds corny or cliched, but I really feel like that's what this song is about. I don't know that it's referring to anything specific, other than a feeling of kind of spiritual panic. I feel like "Bed for the Scraping" is also a similar terrain. I mean, think about the title, "Bed for the Scraping." That's,
It's very uncomfortable.
yeah, that sounds really bad. That sounds like someone who's really, really fucking depressed. But anyway, yeah. So my take on this song is that it's about an existential panic. I needed something to do, so I split into two. But now the pattern takes hold. I find I'm losing control. I mean, that's pretty. I feel like pretty explicitly about freaking out.
This is one of these songs that I'm very happy to hear your take on it, because my immediate take was so different. I was imagining, like, it seems like you are taking this to be a pretty autobiographical song, as you say. I was thinking of this as sort of a character song where the speaker of the lyrics is not Ian, but he's projecting them onto this character he's creating to do some kind of commentary. I was first of all taking "Birthday Pony" to be more literal. Like, I'm imagining a businessman who is away from home to the extent that he's estranged from his family to a large extent. Buying a pony for the birthday of his son or daughter. Right, literally,
yes.
like, hey, here's a birthday pony. This makes up for all the time I spend away from you, right?
That I do think that is the image that "Birthday Pony." I mean, I think that's part of the humor of "Birthday Pony." It definitely speaks of privilege and that exactly that kind of scenario, like some affluent kid getting some amazing treat that they can't even appreciate.
Yeah, and I guess if you take it that way, it does sort of track through the rest of the song for me. Talking about basically living two lives, both at home and away from home, and the stress that creates. Right. It first of all, it reminds me of the famous poem "The Road Not Taken" by Robert Frost, which is basically about the anxiety over not being able to do two things, like to live two different lives that you want to live because you're only one
Yes.
person. And people who attempt to do that sort of thing, it becomes it turns into an oppressive, terrible situation sometimes. It also makes me think of, those stories you hear about these sort of weirdos who at some point it's discovered they have a second family, entirely separate from their first
totally.
family. And it's like you'd imagine, and I think this is really speaks to the line at the end, I don't want to be free, which is this perverse sort of self-contradictory idea. But it makes you think of like, yeah, for those people, you imagine like what happened. It's probably there's some midlife crisis. They're seeking freedom, but then very quickly that turned into this bizarre scenario where they have two families and they're more chained to more things than ever before. So there are all these things going into this character that I'm imagining is the speaker of the lyrics here in Birthday Pony.
I think that that's a valid read. I think that that's an interesting that's an interesting read. I feel like more likely, from my point of view, again, I don't feel, I mastered the damn song, but I don't feel like I'm not speaking from a position of authority. I definitely don't want to come off like that. I think your read is valid, but I do think that Ian often talking about his own perspective. And I don't think it's, I can see it reading as a character, but I do think that it's, I just see him and his life in Arlington and just dealing with the day-to-day life of being Ian, which is a big job. I mean, Ian answers all of his fucking fan mail.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that? Like, I am not even 1/10 as famous as Ian MacKaye, and I can't answer all my fan mail. I don't know. I don't understand how I can't even imagine. Can you imagine? This dude probably got 10 emails in the space that we've been talking.
Yeah.
And he's going to answer every damn one of them. That's unbelievable. He's constantly overseeing so many aspects of the way the label runs, the way his bands run. He's participating. He's doing all sorts of community building things, and he's responding to fan mail, and he's just keeping his shit together in this amazing way. It's really a big part of his genius. I mean, Ian booked the band. Ian booked Fugazi. If you wanted Fugazi to play, you actually talked to Ian. For a lot of their career, you talked directly to Ian. He was the person who organized all that stuff. So I feel like his life must get challenging. I mean, I think he's a genius, but I think it must be hard to be Ian MacKaye sometimes. And I feel like this song is a little bit about the panic of I think that what I think is the Birthday Pony is a metaphor for I've been given a gift. I've been given a gift of a moment of where I can just relax or be myself, and I don't feel relaxed.
Right.
Here I am, maybe hypothetically, I just got off tour, and have you toured as a musician?
Yeah, just like a week. I don't know if I've ever toured more than a week and a half in my life.
Okay, when you go on a long tour, you get into the rhythm of the tour, and your life becomes, I'm a musician on tour. And when you come home, all that stops. Like the daily rhythm of driving great distances to go play a loud rock show at night, every night, stops. And suddenly your life is quiet and peaceful, and it can freak you out. And I feel like I feel like Birthday Pony might be about one of those periods where he's trying to find some peace and he still feels sort of agitated, and he recognizes he's fortunate to be able to have these things. When he says, I open up these accounts, all these separate accounts, that's the kind of thing you don't do unless you have some dough.
Right.
But I feel like the song sounds uneasy the entire time. And at the end, he's sort of freaking out. I mean, literally, he does an impression of freaking out when he says "laugh, boy," and then he just goes into that crazy laugh. And can you imagine if that? I'm going to just give him credit as a performer right now. Can you imagine if that laugh hadn't landed the way it does? Because it's kind of a melodramatic move to suddenly laugh in a song in a sort of maniacal way, and he pulls it off. He pulls it off in a way that's both funny and terrifying.
Big time.
And it could be. I mean, think about how badly that could be done. I would never do that. I would never fucking laugh in the middle of a song.
Oh, yeah.
I do not have that kind of. I mean, that's amazing.
Quick detour.
There's so many amazing.
I've prepared a top 10 list of songs featuring laughing. All right, ready? No particular order. Here we go.
All right.
We've got "Wipeout" by the Surfaris, obviously the classic, right?
Yes.
We've got "Big Yellow Taxi" by Joni Mitchell. Not a great laugh, very artificial sounding, but I mean,
it's a really bad laugh.
Iconic to me. There's one.
Yeah,
I don't know
sure.
if you've heard this song. The B-52s have a song called "Hot Pants Explosion," which I'm including in this list only because the laugh in that song sounds to me a lot like the one in "Birthday Pony," strangely enough. So listeners, look that up. I have "Hansel and Gretel" by Babes in Toyland, an amazing, lesser-known song.
I don't know that one.
I used to play a cover of that with Carol Bowie from time to time. I'll send you a link if I remember to do so. We've got "Father John Misty," "Born in the USA," very interesting use of actual like sitcom laugh track on a song. "Feel Good Inc. by the Gorillaz," "Thriller" by Michael Jackson, "Brain Damage" by Pink Floyd, Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols, and an honorable mention, a tie to every Lil Wayne song because I love the way that guy laughs. So there's my little list that I prepared.
The Joni Mitchell thing is actually, to me, an example of. I mean, I think she's amazing, and I love that song, but I always dislike that moment when it goes there because I can really hear that it's not genuine, and that just takes me out. And it's enshrined forever, and it's Joni Mitchell. I am not fit to be criticizing Joni Mitchell, but that's an example of one where it doesn't work. That list is interesting. You want to hear? This is a serious side trip.
Go for it.
I was in the studio with Fugazi. I was in the studio with Fugazi. We were working on the argument. I was involved in the recording of the argument, by the way.
Okay.
And we were working on the argument, and I said, "Is it Fugazi's song with Wipeout in it? Smallpox Champion."
Oh.
So Smallpox Champion, the very last line is Wipeout.
A much darker meaning of that.
Yes, much darker, right? So I said to Guy, this is one of those moments where you realize, like, it was just a dork fan moment. I said, in Smallpox Champion, are you doing a satirical take on Wipeout, the surf song? Because Wipeout, the surf song, ostensibly celebrates American hedonism, surfing and just having fun,
sure,
and not thinking about consequences. And Smallpox Champion is obviously a critique of that. So I thought, maybe he was doing that reference on purpose. And Guy paused for like 5 or 6 seconds, staring at me blankly. And then he was like, "You are a sick motherfucker."
Oh, man. So I guess that's a no. All right.
I guess I think he was looking at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And it was deeply embarrassing. I'm going to be honest. It was deeply embarrassing. It was not a good moment, but it's funny to me now when I look back on him, just looking at this insane fan who came up with this insane theory on his lyrics, and he's like has to endure it. And it was, I mean,
that's a classic, like the Chris Farley SNL character. He's like the fanboy.
Oh yeah, I mean, believe me, I had many of those moments working with Fugazi. Many moments where I exactly was the Chris Farley character.
You remember that song, Smallpox Champion?
It It was exactly like that. It was exactly like that. And Guy is hilarious because he's really funny. But he's, like that shit that he writes really comes from a deep place, and he's pretty serious about it. So he didn't even know how to respond. And he's just like, no, I didn't think of that. And what a fucked up thing that would be to do. And I don't know. It made me feel closer to Guy, that he would just straight up be like that rude.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, we're getting closer now because he's there are many ways he could have said, actually, no.
It's like, that's a very interesting idea, young man. Yeah.
Yeah, he could have done that. He could have done that if we hadn't gotten close to each other. But I think he knew that I would receive what he said in the right spirit. Anyway, it was a funny moment. It's got nothing to do with Birthday Pony, but there you go.
I love the sidetrack though. But speaking of the laughing parts, gotta mention the sort of weird demo stuff in the beginning of the track before the song proper starts. Is an amazing part of the song. I guess so. It sounds like Ian's practicing almost the laughing parts that he's gonna do in here, or just purely goofing off in the studio. Here's
the thing. I don't know if this is accurate. This is one of those things that really surprised me because I've always assumed that's Ian, but I was told that is Brendan.
Really? Huh.
It's not Ian at all. And I was like, well, how can that possibly? It sounds so much like Ian.
It does, especially like the last laugh as it trails off. I'm like, that's got to be Ian's voice.
It sounds exactly like Ian. Yes. So I don't know if I'm getting it wrong now, but I was told that it's not actually Ian that's on that we're hearing in that opening.
All right. Well,
anyway.
I'll add that to my list of things to ask the band if I ever interview them on the show. I'll see if I can confirm that. So that'd be very interesting.
Yeah, I might be wrong. But I think that's what I think. Anyway, that opening is so great because it's a great combination of being comical and artistically valid. Not just as a sort of a funny excerpt, but actually, like texturally, the way that they use lo-fi in that band.
It makes the hi-fi stuff sound better. First of all, like it's I was gonna say also, like, it makes me think of Surfer Rosa, of course, by the Pixies. I always loved in that album in particular. There are several sections where Albini includes this like studio chatter, this like sort of this funny nonsense, and it's like those become inseparable from the actual songs in my mind. It's just such a huge part of the record, and sort of same thing in Birthday Pony.
Yes, and that is that's it's also a technique from hip hop. It's like De La Soul records.
Yes.
Where you get all sorts of bits of kind of chatter and or you get to hear part of the process presented in a sort of lo-fi way. De La Soul is Dead and Fugazi are the two influences that led my own band, Smart and Crazy, to do something similar on our last record, which is blend hi-fi and lo-fi as part of the same vista.
Yeah, it's I can imagine it's very off-putting to somebody if you're just like, hey, listen to this track, Birthday Pony. But if you're listening to the album as a whole and you're gonna sit down and listen to the whole thing, it's very rewarding to me, and I love that dynamic.
I agree with you. I think it's fantastic.
I'd like if I could pivot to one last topic sonically that I'd like to talk about is I think listening to this song, just purely from a sonic perspective, I think Brendan is the star of this song. The drums sound so good, and I just wanted to say, let's hear it for Brendan's bell. That thing, this bell that he has on his drum set, plays an important part in this song, and we haven't discussed it on the podcast so far. So I just wanted to give props to that. It's this big like sort of dinner bell or farmer's bell.
Yes.
There's an interview I found from a music blog called Fresh Pots earlier in 2019, And Brendan's talking about it. He says, I'm quoting here, "I used to use many different minimal percussion pieces like circular saw blades, but they were never loud enough to play in a room without a PA, as Fugazi often would. Guy Picciotto found the bell at a farmer's sale in Virginia and bought it for me. I love how loud it is. It wakes everyone up." And yeah, I'm not a drummer, and often I feel that I'm less intelligent, less knowledgeable when it comes to listening to drum sounds, especially like, if you just played a track and I didn't know who the drummer was, often I probably would fail at identifying who it was, but not Brendan, especially when he uses that bell. And I remember seeing Fugazi live, especially when you're younger. Sometimes you'd sort of get excited just seeing the stage set up for the band that was about to play. And that was the biggest part for me, Fugazi be about to play. It's like the Ian's SG is there, and there's Joe's Stingray, but that bell on that drum set, I would just look at it, I would be so excited, just like, oh, it's about to happen, Fugazi's about to play. I love the bell.
It's an important totem.
And I'm surprised I haven't seen other drummers steal that idea. I don't know if there are other drummers who use one.
I think it's very much a signature, and I think everyone recognizes it as a signature. And in a way, it's almost operates not to be corny about it, but in a Pavlovian sort of way. Exactly when you see it and when you hear it, you're like, this is Fugazi. I think it's a fingerprint of the band. And it's something that, as I said earlier, every gesture has substance with that band. Like, everything is purposeful, and even if it's not specific, it's not like, oh, the bell represents, oppression or whatever. Like, it's not like some kind of corny meaning that's specific. But I think the bell makes it feel very much like, well, it's a Fugazi show. It's a Fugazi song.
And I
agree with you.
I think he's kept using it afterwards, right? I think he uses it in the Mesthetics, for example, doesn't he?
Does he? I have not seen.
I
saw Mesthetic once.
Yeah, I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I mean it's the drum sound on Red Medicine in general is more three-dimensional than it had ever been before. And there's more of a sense of the enveloping space around him as he's playing. I think they were spending more time on it. I think it's a record that cost more to make, and that they put a lot of attention into detail. And it's a fantastic drum sound.
All right, so let me pivot to a segment of this show that I like to do called simply Ratings. Do you like me? Do you like me? Do you like me? If you had to rate this song on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, purely within the context of Fugazi, like your least favorite song to your most favorite song by the band, could you give this song a rating?
I mean, my least favorite song of Fugazi is On the Argument, and it's called The Kill. And I just don't like that song. But I like kind of almost all Fugazi. It's like the Beatles to me. Like, right. There really aren't a lot of bad Fugazi songs. They might have a different viewpoint on that, but I feel like almost all of their catalog is stellar. So it's hard, my scale is pretty narrow. So I'm going to say that this would be, this is like a 4, I guess.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually. I mean, to me, it's not a stone cold Fugazi classic. It's not the very top tier. And it definitely seems like a little bit of an oddball at first, but just really thinking about it in terms of my enjoyment, I got to give it up. It's a 4 for me. As I said before, I absolutely love how the drums sound on this. I love the sort of quiet, loud dynamic at the end. The manic, insane, laughing performance by Ian. There's so many great parts of this. So yeah, 4 from me. Big ratings.
and the way the guitar's internet is kind of like almost frightening at the end. Yeah, I agree. It's a pretty thrilling thing.
I forgot to say there's that part after the lyric "I'm losing control." There's this descending thing that the guitars and bass do together, which I'm unable to decipher what each thing is playing, but it's this amazing dissonant sound.
Yeah, and
I love it.
It's sour and fucked up in a good way, in a really good way. I agree with you. It's like actually scary at the end of the song,
right?
Which is why I feel like the I don't know. I do think that this is a personal song, Ian speaking as Ian, but I might be wrong.
If that's the last word you have on the song,
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, then let's talk plugs. Where can listeners reach you? Do you have anything coming up you want to plug? Your Twitter, your websites, anything?
Pretty active on Twitter, which is twitter.com/beautypill. I don't think about what I say on that. I mean, I'm not a strategic tweeter. I'm not someone who I don't like. It's not like something that I use to advance a business interest or whatever. I often just talk about whatever's on my mind, and I don't really filter myself at all. So that's one way that people can find me. As I said, we have a record coming out on Northern Spy, which is called Please Advise. I think it's good. It doesn't sound anything like Fugazi, but I think it's strong music. And I guess that would be it for me, I guess.
Well, thanks again, Chad, for taking a chunk of your day to talk to me. It's been very enlightening on a number of different levels. So thanks very much, and maybe we'll have you back if you're interested in talking about another song later on in the catalog.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a great idea, and I'm really glad you asked me. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So as for me, you can reach me at fugazi@gmail.com. You can also join the Facebook group, the Alphabetical Fugazi. Talk about Birthday Pony. What do you guys think about it? What's your interpretation? And I hope you'll join me for the next episode when we will be discussing Blueprint. Until then, keep your eyes open.